Welcome to Youth Performance Company. We're so glad to have you back or with us for the first time. These are our expectations for arts educators. In this training, we're going to go over how to be prepared, what to expect when you get to the classroom and how to manage that experience, and lastly, housekeeping, the things that you'll want to know to make sure that your class runs smoothly. So starting with preparation, it's important that you have a plan and have done your best to properly prepare for your class. Here are our best practices. Create a curriculum that is challenging but attainable. You always want to start with that lesson plan outline. Think about how you're going to divide your time during each class, and also think about the trajectory from day one to the last day of classes, whether that's a 5-day class or a class that spans weeks. You want to make sure that you have a plan so that you can inform your students where we're going and get their buy-in. Also, when you're developing your curriculum, consider the end goal in the plan. What is the product you plan to show or record for an audience at the end of this experience? Whether that's in person with educating your students through a experience where their parents are coming, or whether that's making a recording. Are you going to do a demonstration? Are you putting together a show or performance? It's up to you to figure that out ahead of time so that you can incorporate that and devote enough time throughout the experience to know that you can achieve that goal. Your curriculum should build on skills, help them develop confidence and additional abilities by the end of their time with you. Every student should learn something and should grow and develop in some way because of the lesson that you laid out in your plan. Lastly, consider ways to make the learning experience fun. You always want to be flexible and adaptable, and know that your plan may have to change based on who's in the room, what students show up. So be prepared with backup games and approaches to be sure that you can achieve your goal. All right, so the next important part of your preparation is getting to know who's in the room. At YPC, we strive to be a safe, inclusive, and fun learning environment for youth. We want you to make sure that if you've been given information about your class, the classroom, dates, details, that you've taken all of that information very seriously and looked at it, including rosters. If you get a roster or a student list and that student list has specific notes about that student that were given to us by their parent or guardian, it's important that you read those things thoroughly. They're important because they tell us things like maybe there's an allergy or a sensitivity or another issue that would help inform us on how to best work with that student when they're in our classroom. We want to be mindful, responsive, and accommodating for any kind of special need or notes that our parents or guardians disclose. We also want to make sure that we keep things confidential, that we do not share individual diagnoses or private information about a youth in front of other students, other parents, or even other teachers if it's not relevant or important to your classroom. We always want to have those kinds of conversations in private. So if you need to clarify or have a question for a parent or guardian who's open to talking and providing more details, please know that you should have those kinds of conversations in an area where you and that parent or guardian can have a reasonable amount of privacy, that no one else is going to overhear private details about their student. Now, if you need specific support related to a behavioral or physical accommodation, please reach out to us so that we can support you. It's okay if there's a diagnosis or an issue that you're not familiar with. We want to support you in working with the parent or guardian as well as the student to accommodate them and do the best that we can to make sure they have a safe and inclusive experience. Now, we have a great program at YPC where we are able to sometimes offer you a youth intern. Now, be mindful that these are youth who are developing and want to know more about what it is to work with other youth in the role of an arts educator. So it's a great opportunity for you to have that actual extra assist in the classroom, but also they're there to be mentored, guided, and supported by you as well. All right, we are whipping through this training. Now you have been so prepared that you are ready for the classroom. So some best practices to make sure that you can establish respect, cooperation, and a spirit of support in the classroom. So here's our best practices. Be on time. Arrive 15 minutes before the start of your class. Get centered. Go over that lesson plan that you worked so hard on so that you're ready to lead the class when your students arrive. A great idea is to set expectations for how we treat one another and ourselves in the classroom. Consider offering those students an opportunity to define what it looks like and keep a record of those rules, whether that's writing it on paper and tacking it to the wall or writing on the whiteboard, but letting the students generate our agreement for how we're going to conduct ourselves in this room is a great resource that you can refer to if anybody ever veers from the expectations that the group agreed on. You also want to start classes with a name game. Certainly the first day, everybody's going to need to get to know one another and get acquainted with one another. It's a good idea and our best practice and our policy to invite youth to share their pronouns, and for you, if you want to, share yours. Students are also invited to add their pronouns to their name tags, and you are welcome to do that as well. Another best practice is to give clear instructions at the beginning of class that outline the goals of your session. Something to the effect of, today we're going to do this, this, and lastly this. That way you've established a map that the group will follow. This can really help minimize the anxiety or confusion that sometimes students have as you move through the lesson plan because they don't know what's coming up next, or they're not particularly engaged in a certain part of your lesson. This really can help you because it's inevitable that there's always that really excited student that just interrupts and says, can we play freeze tag? Can we, build a fort? And sometimes those ideas are inspired in some way, but they seem so left field that instructors can get frazzled or kind of startled when that happens. So know that that probably will happen. So if you tell them ahead of time, today we're going to do this, this, and this, when you get those sort of unsolicited offers of activities, you're able to say, hey, remember, today we're going to do this, this, and this. Remember at the beginning of class, I told you all what the plan was, so we're going to follow the plan. If we get through those things on our plan, perhaps we can play freeze tag. Or that can be our game that we start with on our next session. You always want to make sure that you incorporate a physical and vocal warm-up at the beginning of a session. That can also be another way to incorporate a game wherever feasible. This is a great place for you to know that when you've built that into your structure, that every day we do this, 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 and this. This is a great opportunity for those games or ways that the youth can be empowered to be incorporated in what game you play or who leads a warm-up or how you navigate the spontaneity that comes from being in a room where you feel comfortable sharing ideas and pitching you on activities that they want to do. We want to encourage that, and we also want to make sure, though, you're able to execute your plan as you have defined it for yourself as well as the students. And lastly, make sure you build in time for breaks and allow some balance between physical activities, group work, and maybe times when you're talking because you need to give them instruction. If you have students doing 100% physical activities, they may get tired. They may need to sit down or get a water break. But also, if you're talking to them for 100% of the time, their attention may wander and they may become squirrely or disruptive. So make sure that you're breaking things up and keeping it exciting and keeping that momentum going. Now, also in the classroom, we know that behavior comes up, and some of us are coming back from being only in our homes and have forgotten how to interact with others. So we want to offer you some tips on classroom management. The key is that you, as the arts educator, manage the energy in the room. You are home base. Your energy influences everything else around you. So we encourage you to be enthusiastic and energetic at all times. If you're excited and engaged, it's way easier to keep the students on your same wavelength. Be prepared. Remember the whole preparation, all that work you put into your lesson plan. Know ahead of time how you're going to divide the time and the activities that you're going to do in every session before you get to class. It's so much easier to keep a cool head and respond to the sort of unsolicited suggestions or disruptions that come up when you've done your preparation. Students respond to your energy. So if you are organized, and you appear to be credible and comfortable in your skin and you're kind, guess what? They're going to mirror and respect what you have done to be prepared and to have that calm, in control energy. If you appear frazzled, impatient, you're annoyed or angry, guess what? They will also mirror your energy. Something I love to do is direct my energy to affirming the desirable and cooperative behaviors and participation. Now, when students are being brave, helpful, kind, they're on task, or they're following instructions, offer them compliments and be enthusiastic when you are reinforcing those productive behaviors. Now, when those behavioral disruptions occur, because we don't live in a perfect world, they happen. It happens. If it's just a mild disruption where students are excited and they're chatting among themselves and they need to be reminded to come back to those rules that you outlined, or be reminded that they need to give their focus and attention to you or their fellow students, it's okay to give a group warning and do that again in an affirming tone, in a tone that does not assume that they mean to be disrespectful or rude, but that says maybe we need to be reminded, let's bring it back in. Try to keep that calm, in control vibe so that you can get them back on track. Now, if a certain behavior persists or it's limited to like 2 people, go ahead and say, hey, so-and-so, say their name. As a reminder, we've got to come back. I really liked how you were being supportive earlier, and we really need that energy from you now. So always turning it back to you have it within you. You know how to do this, and we're going to support you in following the rules that this group has outlined and agreed upon, and doing that in a really confident, peaceful, calm manner. Also, I just want to encourage you to remember that those parent and guardian forms that gave you information about behavior or emotional information, that might be helpful to revisit to help inform your response to a certain behavior that's coming up in class. You can always, as I said before, get support from the YPC administration, the staff, if you feel that there's a situation you just do not know how to respond to, or if there's some kind of actual concern for a child's well-being. We want to always approach these situations with compassion, and we want to try not to jump to conclusions in response to a disruptive behavior or students who might be having a hard time just going along with the flow of your plan. They're just maybe struggling to follow the map. Now, that being said, if a behavior becomes violent, excessively disruptive, or threatening to others, do your best to safely intervene in a firm, calm manner. Get support from whoever is on staff, on site, and call parents, guardians as necessary if it becomes reasonable and necessary to remove the student. And lastly, Always remember that all that planning that you did was to support you when you were in the classroom, to support you with classroom management and behavior. So if you're noticing that you planned and planned and planned a series of activities, but every time you get to a certain activity, it goes haywire, you lose control of the class, or you're struggling to get them to focus, maybe you want to revisit that activity or rethink the lesson plan, be flexible, pivot and adapt as necessary if things aren't going exactly as you planned. All right, so we have one last thing to talk about, and that is the housekeeping. Now, we are here to give you the administrative support necessary to help you be successful, but we need your help helping us help you. First of all, can't reiterate enough, be on time, 15 minutes before class. Be sure to check in and out with our YPC staff on site at the beginning and the end of your class. And if you're running late or if there's an emergency, be sure you contact us so that we can make arrangements. There are students and parents and guardians depending on you to be there. So if something's come up, we need to know so that we can make sure that we're covering whatever is happening as necessary. If you need any materials for your class, like handouts, please advise us ahead of time. Send an email to learn@youthperformanceco.org. Now, if for some reason there's some spontaneous need or something didn't get handled ahead of time, we will make exceptions. You could ask a staff on site or an intern to make copies and do that for you while you still conduct your class, and we make that happen so you don't have to leave the classroom to handle that. But please, and as much as possible, tell us ahead of time. Also, we ask that you treat YPC equipment and materials as if they were your very own. If you have been generous and you bring in your own materials for your class, we thank you, but we also want to remind you that you are responsible for caring for those items. We are not responsible for anything that may be lost, stolen, or broken in the course of your class. So keep that in mind when you bring anything that is a personal or prized possession to YPC for the purposes of your class. Please only bring things that you are able to be fully responsible for while you are teaching your class, or please use the materials that we provide. And lastly, I just want to remind you again, we've got these great interns who can be there for you to lead to lead games, and really act as though they are your teacher's assistant. So they do have some training and best practices and things that we've done as another developmental tool. But the key to that dynamic and that relationship for you is to communicate. So as we mentioned, if you're coming 15 minutes early and you're getting yourself centered, this is a great time to let your intern in on, here is the plan for the class today. We're going to do this, this, and this. Here's where I need your help. Here's where I would like you to be a quiet observer. Here's where I think that you could do a great job leading an activity. Maybe even asking, was there anything, checking in from the last class? Was there anything from the last class that you think you have questions about or need help with, or something that I might have asked you to do or help with that wasn't clear? So having that communication as the brilliant arts educator you are gives you additional support from our youth intern, but also supports you in being a great mentor because you are someone they are looking up to in hopes that their life might lead them to the path that yours has as an arts educator. Congratulations, we did it. We have gotten through our expectations for arts educators. Thank you in advance for your contribution to Youth Performance Company and for creating a safe, welcoming, and fun environment for all our youth. YPC, be bold.